So, how does the supply curve work in a competitive market? We look at the short run with a market supply and a fixed number of firms. For example, that's on your PowerPoint and I believe in the book. Let's take 1,000 identical firms, and we're trying to decide if they should enter or exit in the short run and in the long run. So each firm's short run supply curve is a marginal curve above the average variable cost. To get to the market supply curve, we add the quantity supplied by each firm in the market at every given price. So in the long run, the market supply the firm will either enter or exit if the firm's markets are earning profits, decided on their profits. If they are earning profits, this will attract new firms. New people will get into the business, new suppliers, and the supply of the product will increase. The supply curve will shift to the right, the price of the product will fall, and profit will decline. If the firm or the industry are coming into losses, then the firm will exit. The supply of the product will decrease. If the supply of the product decreases, the supply curve will shift to the left. At this time, the price of the product will rise and the losses will decline. So they would stay in. At the end of this process of entry or exit, firms that remain in the market must be earning at least zero economic profit. Therefore, the process of entry or exit ends only when the price and the average total cost become equal. This implies that in the long run equilibrium of a competitive market must have firms that are operating at least the efficient scale. So, why do competitive firms stay in business if they're making zero profit? Because you remember we talked about this earlier, because profit is equal to total revenue minus the cost. To an economist, the total cost includes all opportunity costs of the firm. So when the firm is earning a zero profit, this must mean that the firm's revenues, which includes paying the owners, are also available for the opportunity cost. So the firm owner is making money even though it's cutting down on the firm's total revenue. So let's take a look at the shift in the demand curve in both the short run and the long run. We looked at the shifts in the supply curve and what it means to exit or enter. So now let's look at the shifts in the demand curve. Assume that the market begins in the long run equilibrium. This means that the firm is entering at the zero profit or higher, and that the price equals the minimum average of the total cost. If the demand for the product increases, this will lead to increases in the price of the good. Firms will respond to this increase in price by producing more in the short run. Because price is now greater than the average total cost, the firms are earning money. So of course they would stay in the market. The profit will attract new firms into the market, shifting the supply curve to the right. This will lower the price, and it falls back to the minimum of the average total cost, and the firms once again earning zero or economic profit. So why the long run supply curve might slope up? Because we assume that all potential entrants face the same cost as exiting firms. So the ones that are entering are going to have the same issues and same problems as the ones exiting. Average total cost of each firm was unaffected by the entry of new firms into the market. In this situation, the long-run supply of the market will be horizontal and the minimum average total cost. However, there are two possible reasons why this may not be the case. If a resource is limited in quantity, the entry of new firms will increase the price of this resource, raising the average total cost of production. If firms have a total rise in the cost, it is likely that they will choose with the lowest cost to produce, which will enter the market. If the demand for the product then increases, the firm that would have entered with the less likely profit will then start to lose, and they may choose to remove from the market. So, in this situation, the long-run supply curve of the market will be upward sloping. In either case, the long-run supply curve of the market is generally more elastic than it is in the short-run supply curve. Remember, because the market firms can enter or exit any time in the long run. So what does chapter 13 tell us before we move on to chapter 14? We've learned the characteristics that make a market competitive. We talked about how competitive firms decide how much output to produce by using the supply curves. We talked about when firms decide to shut down production temporarily in the short run. We talked about firms deciding to exit or enter the market in the long run. We also talked about the behavior that determines the market's short run and long run supply curves. So before we move on to chapter 14, a few things that we need to remember. Remember, the use of the word competition is not similar to the word in sporting. That business competition has assumptions and outlooks, market price, equilibrium. Other factors are plugged into it. Also, in a perfect competition, can only change the level of total revenue by varying the level of output, because they have no ability to change the price. Remember, they're price takers. By definition, average revenue is always equal to the price, but marginal revenue is equal to the price only for firms that operate perfectly competitive markets. When finding profits on the graph, we must always find the average total cost of the profit maximum level of output. So remember, we talked about economics viewpoints and accounting viewpoints. So remember, what are the differences between the economic profit loss versus the accounting profit and loss? Well, remember, the economic costs always include all of the costs and all of the resources, including normal returns to profit. The compensation for firm owners for the risk and the other efforts put into their own business. Always remember that no matter what the shape of the long-run supply curve, an increase in demand will always lead to the rise in the price in the short run, and a decrease in demand will always lead to a drop in the price in the short run. And because of that, a competitive firm is a price taker. Its revenue is proportional to the amount of output it produces. The price of a good equals both the firm's average revenue and marginal revenue. To maximize a profit, a firm must choose a quantity of output such as the marginal revenue equals. Because marginal revenue for a competitive firm equals the market price, the firm chooses the quantity so that the price equals the marginal cost. Thus, the marginal cost curve is what is depending on making the assumptions and predictions based off of the supply curve. So in the short run, when a firm cannot recover its fixed costs, the firm will choose to shut down temporarily. If the price of the good is less than the average variable cost, in the long run, when the firm can recover both fixed and variable costs, it will choose to exit if the price is less than the average total cost. So, in a market where free market entry and exit are allowed at any time, profit is driven by zero in the long run. In this long run equilibrium, all firms produce at the efficient scale. Prices equal the minimum of averages, total cost, and the number of firms adjust to satisfy the quantity demanded at this price. Changes in demand have different effects over different time and horizons. In the short run, an increase in demand raises the price and leads to profits, and decreases in demand lower the price and leads to losses. But if firms can freely enter and exit the market, then the long run number of firms adjust to the driven market back to the zero profit of the equilibrium. So it all comes down to, if the supply is there and the demand is there, you'll continue to see an increase. But as supply outreaches the demand, you will see a decrease. As we move to chapter 14, we'll talk about monopolies and how they're affected in a competitive firm. So, thank you for watching. You should be about to take your final. If you have any questions, what you need to have learned in this chapter is mainly the terms and the concepts. Be familiar with the formulas. Anything that's on your test, you should be able to use your book, PowerPoint, and other online resources to be able to be successful at your test.